highly technical in that part. Keen just to kick off. So if you've got any questions, put it into the chat, and when Chris jumps in, I'll monitor the chat, and we can, if at some way through the time we can make it a bit interactive if you want to as well. So happy to do that.
Yep, and just one more thing, Mike. Sorry. We will have the session recorded, and the slides will also be published once the meetup is done.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Everyone's seen this. Everyone's sat through Salesforce presentations before. Twilio is no different. Forward-looking statement. The only best thing is I don't have a nice safe harbor song to go along with this. So, make your buying decisions based upon our current release product, not our forward release product. We may talk about some roadmap items. We'll clearly identify those going forward. But if you do make any buying decisions, please make it upon our current release GA products. So for those who haven't met Twilio before, haven't come across Twilio, we're a leading customer engagement platform. We've been helping organizations for the past 12 years build differentiated experiences at scale. If you've ordered a pizza from Domino's, if you've got Woolies delivery recently, or you've jumped in an Uber, you've all been fortunate enough to be engaged in this way that one of these developers want to engage with their customer through a Twilio platform. Whether it's been masking your customer information using a proxy call, whether it's an SMS to tell you when your delivery is going to be turning up, or whether it's an engaging experience to tell you that your pizza is going to be turning up, come downstairs. This is what Twilio has been helping organizations around the world with 8 million developers across about 190 different countries or so develop. The idea today is to just take you quickly through our customer engagement platform and then jump straight into a build and show you what that experience looks like with Salesforce. So our customer engagement platform is built upon our super network, ideally at what you can see down at the bottom. When you're creating engagements, when you're creating those things, the last thing you want to do is have to set up infrastructure, set up telco carrier contracts, be able to expand that wherever you're going in the world. So Twilio, with Super Network, allows you to provide the redundancy that you need across 190 different countries. You can purchase a phone number wherever you need and start to send text messages and make the phone ring in 190 different countries, and all at the end of an API. That started about 12 years ago by allowing organizations to send SMSs just to inform the customer about what's going on in their world, whether it's placing an order in an e-commerce site or whether it's telling them that there's a hailstone storm coming, you should move the car. The idea that this is done on scale at making sure the right message gets to the person at the right time. And whether it's making that phone ring in whatever country it is, so I could sit in Australia today and at the end of an API, make a phone ring in America, Iraq, Iran, Russia, and UK, without having to sign up to a telco carrier in either of those countries, procure hardware, or go from there. And as we've built on, making sure that redundancy and skills goes across all of our APIs. So that works across anything you want to do, whether it's create a curated video experience, a chat experience, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, email. Each of these is just an API channel that you can connect to. And on top of that, you can start to build logic and frameworks around it. So you can start to put natural language and conversations around it across WhatsApp, Facebook, email, SMS, etc. Or you can start to orchestrate that. So when the conversation comes in or when a notification goes out, that doesn't have to just be a 160 characters or a short, sharp message. That can be the start of a conversation between you and your end customer. And so being able to put intelligence around that and route it to the right person at the right time also allows you to create that engaging experience in the way that you want to. And if you want to take it on to the next level and start to get business users engaged, whether it's with a call center experience with Twilio Flex that can be dropped into Salesforce, as we'll see in a minute, but also be able to drive marketing campaigns. Some of our products allow you to do that with Flex and SendGrid. And so rather than having a piecemeal Lego piece approach, we provide this all as one platform that allows you to purchase a phone number, send an SMS, and run your logic on us through our functions and assets. So we have a serverless environment that allows you to deploy your code onto the Twilio platform and run that close to where that logic lives. So as the phone call rings, your logic can take place and start to programmatically do what you want it to do. So writing your code in Node.js, you can run that whenever you want with whatever interaction comes in a nice curated experience. So with that in mind, what we wanted to talk today is about reimagining that conversational engagement. And this will definitely be the last slide I show you today. But what I wanted to do is set the scene for us to jump in and show you what that can look like inside of Salesforce. So imagine when that phone call rings today, or you want to call out to your favorite energy company or your favorite telco or your favorite organization. The last thing you want to do is be given that old paradigm of that IVR experience. Please enter your 16-digit account number, because everyone remembers that, of course, and then go through a long listed line of options to actually work out which person you want to speak to. Wouldn't it be amazing if you can actually provide a nice customer engaging experience on the end of a phone call or end of an SMS conversation or a web chat or WhatsApp or whatever it is, based upon who that customer is and what you already know about it? How can you proactively try to preempt what the customer wants to talk to you about? And that's where Twilio and Salesforce comes in. And this is what we're going to show you how you can build today. So imagine that call comes in. So it automatically recognizes who I am based upon my phone number, looks up that customer in Salesforce and says, "Hi, Mike, thanks for contacting our insurance. We understand why you're calling us because we have all of that contextual information already available to us at the end of our contact center. So why don't we just expose that to you straight away up front? Why don't we tell you, we think we know why you're calling us. We see you have a claim open. Are you calling us about that claim?" "Yes, I am." "Great. So rather than just tell you something arbitrarily, do you want to speak to someone about that claim? How about we tell you about, what the last update on that claim was? So how about we do some call deflection? Instead of actually logging into a portal site or logging into something to get the information, I can call that up in the end of an SMS or a phone call and be told exactly what's going on. The assessor is scheduled to meet you at 2 p.m. Would you like to provide an update?" And so being able to use natural language to actually take the information from the customer and actually put that back into update the call. "Yes, I want to reschedule," and then put that information back into the hands of an agent who can actually create a task, create an appointment, or even programmatically redo that ourselves automatically. And is there anything else? No, thank you very much, goodbye. So that's a much different experience to what we've seen earlier in terms of picking up a phone, putting in a very arbitrary long number, going through a very long-winded IVR experience to actually work out who we want to speak to and why we want to talk to them. This way, we're able to deflect away from a call center, which is the main cost of a business, and be able to actually offer a self-service approach where you're actually increasing customer satisfaction. And all that was done using a curated experience, using the information that you have today inside of Salesforce. So with that in mind, let's jump in and look at how we can actually build these experiences. And for that, I'm just going to hand over to Chris.
Thanks, Mike. Right, so let me share my screen here. Okay, just a quick nod if everyone can see that. Yep. Cool. Just confirm everyone can see that screen. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Mike. So yeah, just sort of carrying on from where Mike left off there. I guess the intent, what we're going to show you here quickly is just a quick demonstration of that, and then we'll delve into how we actually built it, and we'll go into some of the nuts and bolts of the components within Twilio as well as Salesforce that make this happen. So to start off with, I want to show you quickly a couple of things that when we place a call in, what that experience looks like, and we'll show a few screens in Salesforce that sort of present themselves as this interaction happens. But to start with, what we see here quickly at the very bottom is this Twilio Flex. This is leveraging Salesforce's open CTI adapter, and what we've done there is just embed our, I guess, a cut down version in terms of real estate from a UI point of view. Of Twilio Flex, which is our programmable contact center product, into Salesforce here. And what you'll see is this will pop up depending on how the interactions are being presented to this agent. So what you see on my screen at the moment is imagine this is a typical contact center agent that's managing cases or does their day job pretty much within Salesforce, lives and breathes within Salesforce. So we've brought the interactions to Salesforce in this case. Right, so I'm going to start with making a phone call into the contact center, and we'll go through that experience now. So I'm just going to share my mobile phone so you can see that as well. 1 second. Okay. Actually, I just realized that might not be visible because of the thing.
Yeah, you might need to share your screen instead of just sharing the browser.
Yeah, we'll do it
on Google Meetup.
Yeah. Okay, should be able to see it now.
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, so let's
the thing that's good about doing stuff at meetups is that you can make it interactive, but each person on the end of this meetup knows what doing a demo is like in front of an audience. So yeah, that
I can't see as well. So yeah,
exactly.
So yeah, feel free to interrupt at any time, please. Right. So here we go. We're going to place a call in. So to our insurance, I'm going to put it on speaker so you can hear what's going on.
Hi, Michael Johnson. Thanks for contacting our insurance. We noticed that you have claim 1161 open at the moment. Are you inquiring about this claim?
Yes.
The last comment on your claim was, status update the 29th of May. Claim received and being processed by claims operations team. If you would like to leave an update, please say reply. If you would like to speak to someone about this claim, please say speak.
Reply.
Please speak your response after the tone. Press the hash key when finished.
It's been 2 weeks since I've heard anything. Please provide an update.
Thank you. Your comment has been recorded. Would you still like to speak to someone about your claim?
Yes.
Great. Please hold while we review to your claim manager in Venezuela.
Okay, so answer this quickly and put it on mute so we don't get any feedback. Okay, so quickly what you saw there was obviously the call coming in, and the first thing we did was we looked up the contact record in Salesforce based upon the calling line identity. So my mobile number is associated with the contact record. And then we used that information to actually greet the customer by name, first of all, which can have a huge impact on customer experience. I think it was a company, United Airlines actually implemented just that very single thing by greeting somebody by name, and their engagement scores went significantly higher. So by using Salesforce Share, we were able to, as I say, pull out the contact record, greet the caller by name, and then we went a little bit deeper and actually we looked at, okay, what other information do we know about Michael Johnson in this case? And we noticed that he had a case open, and we offered the caller a question around is he calling about that particular case? So a little bit of prediction on that front. And then by providing a status update, as Mike said in the previous section there, that may be enough to just sort of deflect the need to actually speak to an agent entirely. But also by giving the customer, I guess, the option to actually say something that we then transcribe and add to Salesforce record before passing on to an agent is also of use. So as you saw, when I called in, I was played this message here, the status update, and then I said this to the actual call center here, and it was transcribed. So it's been 2 weeks. Please provide an update. And then the final bit, what we did was we actually log that a voice call had started. So we're using Salesforce here as that central source of record for all interactions. So whenever a call comes in or whenever a SMS is sent or received, we're going to log that information in here so that it's there for whatever purposes in the future. If someone needs to go back and see, okay, what was the last communication between our organization and the customer, it's all documented clearly here. And then lastly, what we did was we actually just popped up the record, which is saving a lot of handle time. It's a pretty frustrating experience when you get through to an agent eventually and you have to go through the whole 20 questions again, and then they bring up the system and they can then start to help you out. So by automating all of that, we've made it really easy for the agent to get into helping and serving that customer. So that was an example of a voice call. So let's complete this, but let's the story sort of play along with the story a little bit, and maybe walk through the needs an update. Perhaps the agent doesn't necessarily have the information to hand at the moment, needs to go away and research it, and then we'll respond back to the customer. So I'm going to hang up this call, and as an agent, I'm going to go away and go and do the necessary research, and then use what you see on the right-hand side here is our SMS capability that's built into Salesforce using an App Exchange application that we've deployed, and I'll show you how that goes in a second as well. But what we'll do here is, let's just say that the agents managed to find out that, okay, well, we can arrange an assessment in the coming days, and we'll send an SMS to the customer with this information. So we've switched channels a little bit here, but given the nature of this type of inquiry, it might make sense to use SMS. So we've just got a message here from Owl Insurance, which is like our fictitious company that we're using as an example here, and I might just say, yeah, that's fine. And what we'll do is we keep a historical record of all these interactions. So this window, as you see, just got updated. That was my response. So any subsequent agent that might pick up this particular case can see the exact conversation that the organization has had with the customer. So that's great. So now it's Friday. We've got the assessor coming out at 2 p.m. But perhaps I realize actually I can't make that for some reason. And then maybe I'm used to using WhatsApp. So let's go to WhatsApp and see if I can reschedule that appointment. So I'll just start with hi. And we'll bin this. So, agents gone back to their day job. Now you see the experience is very similar on WhatsApp as was on the phone. We know who it is, but based on the phone number, we also can see that the case is still open. So I am still inquiring about that case. And let's have a chat to an agent. Oh, I need to change this appointment. And yeah, I do need to speak to somebody. So there you go. As you see now, like the phone call that was presented to us, we have a WhatsApp message now presented to us with all the context. So the agent's able to quickly look into the history of this conversation. So right from the start, where it was automated, where we had the bot sort of engaging with us, and then obviously the handover to an agent. So as an agent, I can respond to, sure. Oh, if I could spell correctly, let's go ahead and move this. And we now got a two-way WhatsApp conversation going on between agent and customer. And again, logging in all that information here in Salesforce, being the central point of record for everything. All right, so does that make sense? Is there any questions at this point, or shall I carry on? Anybody? No worries.
I think carry on. There's some questions in the chat, but
there are a few posted in the chat. If you can look into that. Yep. Yeah,
I'm answering a few of the questions. I think a few will come up as we're going through, but we'll go through a bit of the build and how this is all put together so you can see it, because I think that's where people want to head.
Excellent. Okay, so what we'll do is just carry on quickly and wrap up perhaps this engagement, and we'll go into how we built this. So I'm going to end this WhatsApp conversation. And let's fast forward a little bit further, and let's assume that now we've actually resolved this case, and customers, happy, and we've resolved the case, and we go about our business. So what we'll do here is in the background, we've actually got a process builder flow watching what's going on here. So I'm going to set this case to closed now, and what will happen is when I set this to closed, we're actually going to send an SMS based upon this closure event to the customer with some information. So I'm going to set that to closed, and we'll watch out now for an SMS coming to my mobile phone. So there it is. So we've said there, thanks for contacting us. We've closed your case. If you feel this should be closed, fair enough. Otherwise, respond reopen. So I'm going to say reopen, because what we want to do here is actually, re-engage with the organization. So when I hit reopen, we're using Process Builder again to notice when we send this message to actually set the status of the case to escalated, and then reserve an agent and make an outgoing call to the customer. So there we go. Here comes the outgoing call. I'm just going to answer that. Press mute. So quickly explain what happened there. So when we responded with reopen, we actually changed the status of the case from closed to escalated. So if I refresh this in a second, you'll see that it's now escalated. And then what we did there with Process Builder was actually send a message to Twilio to actually create an outgoing call to that customer before reserving an agent before we place that outgoing call. So think of that as like a callback. You could time that callback, or you could just, in this case, we sent that call out immediately. Right, so there we go. So I'll go in and explain how we did that now quickly. So if I just want to refresh that and show you that it's set to escalated. So here you see as we've set it to escalated. So how did we do that? So in Process Builder, we've created, and we'll go through and create a new one of these at the moment. So what we did was when the case was closed, we've noticed that obviously the event is case closed, and we've used the Twilio package to go and actually send an SMS, and we're using a few things here. So first of all, let's jump into where you find that on the App Exchange. So if I go here, you just search for Twilio here. Here it is. It's Twilio for Salesforce is the package name. And you can install it, and you get 30 days free licensing, I believe, and it can be upgraded at any time beyond that. Once installed, the package allows you to do quite a few things. First of which was I showed you this ability to send one-to-one messages. But what we find a lot of customers using is the ability to use the messaging within campaigns. So I've got a campaign set up here quickly, and I've only got 2 members added. But what you could do here was add as many campaign members as you'd like. And what we're able to do is send a broadcast message, so a bulk outbound message to all members within this campaign. So I'll show you what that looks like quickly. And this is the little widget, the Lightning component that we've embedded in campaigns to be able to provide that function. So if I hit send message here, so I'm able to say hello, and we can template in first name, space, perhaps last name. There is a storm in the way. Please move your car and cover. Okay, so I can go ahead and send this, get a bit of a preview of what that looks like. There it is, and hit send. And what's happening now is we're using Twilio messaging API to go and bulk send all those SMSs to the members within our campaign. Now, this is immensely powerful because if you think about the ability to, where did that go? Yeah, so you see on my mobile here, that was the message. And I can say, respond to this as well. So it's not just a one-way message. It is two-way. But if you needed to send bulk messages, particularly in this time now where everybody's potentially coming back to work and we need to update bulk outbound notifications to perhaps employees, or there's a multitude of different reasons why you might need to send an outgoing bulk message. This tool provides a really easy way to do just that. And what also happens is once that message is sent, it keeps a record of it in the actual one-to-one messaging that we saw here as well. So you can see this was the message that the campaign builder sent, and then this was my response as well. So, from a record keeping point of view, you have all that information to hand too. Great.
Let's jump into show how it's been built and how it integrates. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. All right. So we'll jump quickly across to Twilio here, and this is sort of how we built the flow of that engagement. So when I rang in, what happened? So the first thing is we have a phone number on Twilio, and that Twilio phone number has been instructed to, when a call is received on that number, to kick off this flow that you see in front of you at the moment. And the first thing this flow does is a trigger. In this case, it was an incoming call. So when we get that incoming call, the first thing we're actually going to do here is go to Salesforce and look up the record based upon the phone number. So we pass in the phone number, and we're using a Twilio function, which is a serverless bit of code that runs Node.js here on Twilio, and we're essentially running a query against Salesforce with this particular query to pull out, based upon the phone number in this case, what records and cases associated with that record do we find, and we return that. So once we return that back to the flow, we're then able to use information we got based upon that previous function check here, and we're able to use that information in real time. So these variables that you see here is information that we've actually pulled out of Salesforce. So it's not scripted by any means. This is actually a real working solution. So you'll see that this variable here is actually pulling out the first name and the last name that we got in the previous step. We're able to see that there's a case open and a few other bits and pieces as well. So what we do then is we ask them the question, and we check what their response is, if it's a yes or a no. If it was a yes, we then go and get the actual comments on that case, which is a similar function to the one you just saw on this screen here. Again, going to Salesforce, but instead of pulling out a record, we're actually asking for case information and the latest update on that case. We then play that back, as you saw here. And then once we've played that back, we ask the customer if they would like to leave a reply. If they said yes, which we did, we capture that reply. So we're listening there with our speech to text engine and transcribing that input. And then we're, in the same way that we got the information about the case, we're posting an update to Salesforce with that information, with the transcription of that information done in this step here. And we post based on the things we've got to pass in at this point is the case ID and the comment, which we transcribed in the step further above. And moving on, we then go through, this is just basic text-to-speech update. And then lastly, the transfer to the agent. So we mentioned that this is the particular case owner that we were able to pull out of the Salesforce record and then send it to an agent. Now, this send to Flex, this is our contact center, widget, if you like. We're able to attach a lot of information to this send to Flex step so that when the call does get to the agent, we know all of the context about it. And what we use there is essentially task attributes, we call it. So Flex is built on a product within Twilio called TaskRouter, and TaskRouter is, think of it as our work assignment engine. We're able to create tasks that represent interactions, be it voice calls or SMS or WhatsApp, as you saw, and we're able to attach attributes to that task so that that lives with the task until it gets to an agent, and then subsequently beyond that as well, if necessary. But you'll see we passed in all of this information. So we passed in the name, the identity of the person, any other information that we may have learned. The benefit of this approach is that we can use all of these different attributes to make routing decisions. So if this customer was perhaps of a certain tier, perhaps a gold customer, we might want to send it to a different group of agents than just to every other agent for that matter. Okay, so then once that's sort of run its course, we then obviously presented that to the agent, and we have the ability to show like the logs of how that call went through the flow, and explain that. All right, so I might just pause there for a second and see if there's any questions we want to answer before we go into quickly showing you how we built a process builder flow. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Jump in.
Yeah, just to add into that, this is a very simplified flow. But everywhere you see these purple widgets, these are gates where you can actually capture and change people's flow. So for example, at the start, if we didn't recognize who the customer was, we could have taken them down a different journey. If a customer wasn't verified or didn't have permissions to go down this road, we could send them a one-time PIN. There's lots of things that you can do inside of this in a very declarative or low-code, no-code way to curate the journey based upon information inside of Salesforce. And when you get down to that flex part, you can actually start to package up all the information from Salesforce and make routing decisions, as Chris said, based upon that, which is quite powerful. All good. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I guess just to sort of finally add to that quickly, this sort of palette on your right-hand side you see here are all the different widgets that we have at our disposal to I guess, orchestrate that experience. So you're able to drag and drop these widgets in and do something with them. So very little to no code in some cases, but where we do need to sort of reach out and do something a little bit more advanced, we do have the ability to invoke an application of some code, and that's where we're effectively using this runner function. So that, which is effectively what this first step is in the flow. We run a function, as I said, that goes to Salesforce using the credentials that we've predefined to actually query Salesforce and return some data, in this case, the contact record and some case data as well. Okay, so let's jump across to Process Builder and build a quick flow that we can then go and execute. So, right, let's create a new one. And we'll call it, let's set, what we'll do is that we'll send an SMS based upon when a case's status is set to new. So when a new case is created. So we might just call it new case SMS. Send SMS. New cases. Okay. Record changes. So I'm sure you're very familiar with this, probably more so than I am. We'll add based on the case object. And that's fine. And we'll add some criteria. So case is new. And let's look at the status of the case, which is fine. And we'll select when it's set to new. And when all the conditions are met, great. Okay, now we're going to add an action here. Now this is where we leverage the Twilio for Salesforce package that I talked about that was on App Exchange. If we select the Apex here, send new SMS as an example. And if we look on here, we're going to do a send Twilio send SMS. Right. So the to mobile number, we'll be able to pull out from the contact record. So let's have a look at that. So if we look at, I think it's the mobile phone number associated. There we go, contact's mobile number. We'll select that and the message string. So in this case, we'll just put a hard-coded string in here. So we have created a new case for you. Okay. And let's save that and activate it quickly. All right. So what we'll do quickly is we're just going to set this status of this case from escalated to new now. And where is the save button gone? Sorry about a second. All right, set this to new. Save. And what we should see is a new SMS pop up saying that that case is being created. And for some reason, we're not getting that update. Not sure if that actually worked. Bear with me a sec. Demo gods shine on us. it's time for a quick page refresh. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why that didn't work. I'll go ahead and just have a quick look at why that's not working. So we may have some duplicate cases in here, duplicate flows or contradicting flows.
That's fine. It's just demo.
Yeah. But you get the idea.
So we're coming up to around the 45-minute mark, where we said we would pause and take questions, and we can actually drive a lot more conversation in terms of where people want to take this or where people want to see things. There's been a few questions in chat. Feel free to connect with us afterwards if we didn't explain anything any well. But happy to take this interactive and show you some more stuff about what you want to see. But what we were trying to do is touch on all the elements that you would have seen during that engagement flow, around all the pieces of how you would integrate the two together. But happy to take questions.
So just a quick one, Mike. All the flow elements in Twilio that you have used to interact with Salesforce, does it internally uses the REST APIs?
Yeah, it's the REST APIs.
Okay.
So those will affect your guarantor limits, just like any other service. They're not whitelisted. So yeah, just like any other service out there. Yeah. So you should be using your REST API. So you need to have access to the API. So you need to be on a certain edition in order to get access to that. But primarily it's working that same way. There was a question around how do we verify who these people are so we access the data. As mentioned in the chat earlier, we can do it in separate ways. So one is we can preempt that in the flow. So we can detect whether the customer has a PIN on their record, just update it, and we can ask them to mention their PIN number using DTMF tones on the keypad. We can look it up in Salesforce, verify it's the same as the PIN that they've given us to do self-service on. If that's the case, that's fine. But what we can also do is trigger a one-time PIN number to their phone number, which might be kind of pointless considering they've got the handset, but we can also do it to the email that's listed on the account as well. So you can send a one-time PIN to an email, to a voice call, to a SMS based upon that. And you can step up the authentication methods. Chris, I don't actually know if you've got that still built into this demo or it's another demo, but when the agent comes through or when the call comes through, we can show to the agent that this is authenticated. We can also do a push authentication at the same time, or the agent can click a button and say, right, I just need to verify you. We're going to send a one-time PIN to your phone and do it that way.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. So we can demonstrate that quickly now. So while you carry on, I'll set that up. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Michael. This is Ryan Anthony.
Hi.
So my question is about my first question, going back to omnichannel. So in reality, most organizations would have different sets of technology in their call center. So maybe a different technologies, for example, Salesforce using Salesforce SMS or Salesforce chat there, and then we'll use call for Twilio. So how do we seamlessly integrate them? Is it possible, this platform?
Yes and no. The answer is yes, you can. You can pass off at any point in time to the various APIs and hand over. The question is that the best experience or what you want to do? Twilio provides an omni-channel experience, so you can use us for any part. So it's, we're a platform. You consume your modules or the components that you want from us. But we treat things in two different ways. We have voice calls, so things coming in from an audio channel, and we have semi-structured text, which is things coming in from SMS, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, etc., etc. So we don't treat those as siloed channels. You can have the same flow connect to all of these channels. So you build it once and connect to all of them. But at any point in time, you can start in one channel and hand off to another channel using our Conversations API. But you can also hand off to a Salesforce endpoint as well. and pass all of that transcription and payload with it. It's probably a deeper conversation around architecture and what's right. But if customers also have, on-prem architecture or on-prem telcos, so we can also support SIP as well, to be able to hand off that way. Is another question, but I think it's not really a 2-minute answer. It's not a 2-minute sentence. It's probably a longer question around what you want to achieve. And we can quickly say you can do it this way. Use the Salesforce part, or if you want to do, as a abstracted across various channels, and a customer could have Zendesk, a customer could have ServiceNow, a customer could also have Salesforce, and depending on the team and the decision, you might want to route it differently into different systems, depending on that. So this gives you a decoupled way of doing it, where you're not fully tied in to that part, but it's probably a longer discussion.
Thanks. You mentioned that the skills are managed in Twilio. Is it possible to do it on call center or on Salesforce?
Yeah, so that's something I said we will quickly look at. Thanks for bringing it up and keeping us honest on this. Chris, I don't know, can you just quickly expand Flex, and let's just show the services skills part around, for a supervisor, just to be able to see what's going on.
Sure.
Quickly, I know we were going to do the authenticated part, but we can.
Yeah, that's okay.
Do it in a minute. But basically, the task routing engine sits inside of Twilio, not inside of Salesforce. So the routing engine of these tasks have to be local to Twilio from that point of view. But when people sign in, you can use Salesforce as the identity engine to authenticate them. So you have that single sign approach. And when they sign up, you can pick up the permissions or the attributes from that object or the user object and pass that across to Twilio to tell us the skills that they should have or what teams or queues they should have. But the decisions that take place actually happen inside of Twilio, not Salesforce, because of that engine part. But we can utilize the skills or the attributes of the user that is signed in using a single sign-in process. But a supervisor, as Chris is going to show you, can start to override that.
Yeah, so quite simply, we're able to assign skills, which I think of these as capabilities that perhaps an agent has. So it might be a language skill. It could be a particular product skill. They may be looking after home insurance and not car insurance, for example. And we're able to add them here. So we've got a few specific ones we've created here, but I could say that Daniel, in this case, has the skill of support, but also marketing. So, and what that now, by saving that, that means that calls that are of that nature Daniel will be considered for those calls. So, and as I said, Mark said, the supervisor can add and remove these skills as they see fit. And if there's a particular influx of calls for support, can go and skill up other agents to be able to take those support calls as well.
So we can, when a user logs in, so you see Chris in the top right-hand corner of Flex, but that user, when he logs in, can either be it could be any type of identity manager. It could be Active Directory, it could be Okta, it could be Salesforce. You can choose what you want. And when that user gets provisioned as an agent inside of Flex to be assigned work, we pick up the skills or the attributes based upon that as a default. So it can be overridden from Salesforce or from the identity manager to tell us, this person belongs in this team, he can handle this workloads, etc. Or if it gets busy, the supervisor can go, right, I need to shuffle people around. I'm going to quickly put this person onto the support queue or the marketing queue or the Flex queue or whichever queue it is, and I can turn on, turn off, and override it. And instantly that would automatically pick up the new workloads and assign tasks based upon that point in time. But when the person signs in for the first time, we can pick up all of those attributes from one of the objects, either in Salesforce, or it can either be from the identity manager, or whatever that is. Did I answer that question?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Can show that authentication piece quickly. Is there any other questions while we?
There was just a question around MMS through Twilio in Australia.
Okay.
I guess that's an Australian requirement. We can talk about it holistically, but yeah.
Yeah, so MMS, unfortunately in Australia at the moment, we can support it to some degree, but not the full extent, because what happens is if you send a message that has an image or something media attached to it, it actually gets stripped out and a URL is provided in its place. So that's unfortunately the case today. We are working with the carriers to actually make that a better experience so that it does support standard MMS. But for now, yeah, if you do send a message with an image in it, it'll get stripped out and a URL is provided to actually retrieve that image.
So you can see the attachment with an attachment icon on the Twilio for Salesforce part. So if we weren't in Australia, that would work in the US to send in an image or something else through MMS. So you have the ability to send media through it. It just depends on the carrier and if you're able to do that with the carrier. The other question that's come into the chat is around China and phone numbers in China. So I'm not completely up to date with this. I don't know if you are, Chris, on that one, but if not, Chinese phone numbers.
We don't have any numbers in China at the moment. We do have numbers in Hong Kong, but unfortunately not China. I think there's some political reasons for that. So at this stage, unfortunately, no numbers in China.
You're gone.
I suppose just to sort of add to that, what we do support is this concept of bring your own trunk, bring your own carrier, kind of it's called. So what that means is if you did have numbers in China from a particular carrier, you're able to forward those numbers to Twilio via a SIP trunk, and then all of what you saw today is possible over that means of bringing the number into Twilio.
Yeah, and that's similar to things you're going to see in other countries as well. So every country has its own telco requirements around what you can and can't do, but you can bring your own carrier to Twilio, and then use the capability that we've just shown you inside of this. So the carrier chain gets passed into Twilio to do the brainworks and then back into Salesforce. India will be slightly the same as well. We do have numbers in India, but they're different to what's been offered in China. WeChat integration, Chris, do you want to talk about that or what we can do? Or
yeah, it's similar to the lack of phone numbers in China. Unfortunately, we don't have any WeChat integration as such at the moment. I know that's something that is asked of quite regularly, and it's definitely under consideration. But at the moment, no, we don't have any native integration to WeChat. It is possible to build a custom channel, though. Yeah. So if that was something that was absolutely necessary, you could, being completely programmable, it is possible to create new channels on Twilio, and WeChat could be one of them.
So there's a couple of blog articles which either a quick Google search or connect with us afterwards, and we can send to you that people have built WeChat into Twilio to do that. But there's no native connector like we have with WhatsApp and Line and a few of the other ones to do that. Quick question on data center as well. Was that the one you were going to quickly talk about or not? Yeah, quickly question on data center. So as of this year, I don't think it's been formally announced, and so still under our forward-looking statement, we have a local hosting in Sydney for our voice capability. So the voice is actually hosted in Sydney, and there's a fully funded project to actually start to roll out more and more capability locally. So Twilio is a very modular platform, and we drop modules into countries just like AWS would when they release new software. So each region is getting capability as and when. So at the moment, the APIs are sitting in the US, in Northeast 1, in the AWS region. But voice at the moment can be run locally, and there's more as time goes on this year. There'll be more and more capability dropped into Sydney, and that's part of our roadmap this year. But again, still on our forward-looking statement, don't make any buying decisions on that.
Michael, follow-up to that question is how long does the data stored in the data center? How long do you keep it?
Yeah, so Twilio does not like to be a state of information. We store metadata for billing, but the idea behind this is that we don't want to store data for long periods of time. So the idea is we remain stateless. So you use systems of record to store that information or S3 buckets. We have capability to do redaction, so you can instantly put redaction on anything if that's a requirement for different parts, and so you can redact phone numbers and messages, etc. By default, you can also trigger straight away deletes of interactions once they're completed. So, for example, conversations, voice recordings, etc., etc. As soon as they're ready, you can delete them straight away from Twilio from that point of view. So we support that redaction. We are HIPAA compliant when it comes to healthcare information as well. And various, so it's not a blanket wide platform HIPAA requirements, it's modular. So things like SMS, voice, video is all supported, and that's something we haven't really touched on today, but we can also do peer-to-peer video conversations in Salesforce as well. So you can build video into your mobile apps, into your websites, into your portals, into communities, and you can have exactly the same experience that we've just done, but in a video conversation inside of Salesforce based upon that. But that's something else that we can talk about as well.
Thanks, Mike. Just cautious of time, just 3 minutes. So probably if there are any further questions, please post it in either our Twitter or LinkedIn. We have channels, social channels, and you have Mike's Twitter handle as well. So
yeah, feel free to connect us on LinkedIn afterwards, both Chris and myself are actively on LinkedIn. Our email addresses are our first initial surname at twilio.com. So feel free to connect with us that way. One thing I'll quickly, if we just finish off, so if I just take over in terms of sharing, I'll just quickly share one final screen with you. I did promise it will be the last slide, but I did lie, so sorry. Just to quickly run through what you saw in a very connective way. I'll send these slides out so you can walk through it, but what we saw is the voice call coming into Twilio, and Twilio called out to Salesforce to get the information, went back to the customer on that handshake scenario with basically information back and forth based upon what the customer asked for, went back to Salesforce, etc. One thing we didn't show was that we have the ability to not hand off straight away. We can do natural language. So you can have a whole conversation inside of Twilio to start with around understanding the intent based upon natural language. But the question came up earlier around, is that using Twilio? Yeah, that's using Twilio's natural language engine, but that could instantly be anything else. We're working with partners like IBM and Watson. It could be Einstein. It could be other products like Assisto. It could be other products like Google to do that natural language. And we just hand off and be the carriage where we talk back and forth between the customer on whatever channel and that natural language engine. But based upon the instruction, we went and updated Salesforce, and then we handed it across to the agent in Flex, which was in Salesforce. Now, when the customer completed, one part we didn't show you, which is a very exciting part to actually look at if you want to, is that the customer had control over the case on a text message and could update the case. But when that case updated, we could have actually presented a reason why the customer was getting a phone call. So if you think about the world where people get these anonymous calls coming in, these anonymous numbers coming in, and no one really answers them, that's a lost opportunity. It's a cost to the business, it's a cost to the FTE, and it's a bad experience. There's a product called Verified by Twilio, and we're working with doing this with Google as well on Verified by Twilio for SMSs. So we can actually tick the box and say, this is Woolworths sending you a text message. This is Combank sending you this text message. For Android customers, but this is an SDK you can drop into your mobile app called Verified by Twilio, and you can control through the APIs to take over the person's screen and present a reason for why you're calling them. So instead of getting this O2 number that pops up on the screen or this unknown number that pops up on the screen and no one answers the call, you can take ownership of their screen or take control of the screen and present a branding which through our SDK, if they've got the mobile app installed on their phone, around why you're calling them and who it is. So it's a pretty powerful tool, and it actually allows you to connect all that a person calls. So if Origin Energy was going to call me, I actually see it as Origin Energy, and I want to speak to them, so I could take that call. So nice little thing that you can build into your apps from that point of view. I know we're conscious of time and we're coming up to the half-hour mark, but we'll happily send out these slides and the recording of this. And there's a couple of other recordings that we can share of information. Yeah, but feel free to connect with us afterwards. Really keen to see what else you can get you guys to build with Twilio and Salesforce.
Perfect. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Chris. So I'll get the recording out, and I'll also, if you can pass on the slide decks, I'll publish that in the community group.
Yeah, amazing.
Thanks everyone for joining. Enjoy your rest of the day.